Today we're going to be ranking every club's summer transfer window. And the first club that we're going to start with is, of course, Arsenal. I'm just going to put them there for now as we talk about them. And the one thing I really want to say before we get started into this and really delve into it is that when you're thinking about where to put your club's transfer window, I really think that you need to be talking about what are the expectations for the season up and coming, what were the deficiencies in the squad, and have that club gone about and address those deficiencies in the summer transfer window. I think for Arsenal, I think there's some very early wins that were quite easy. Obviously signing David Raya on a permanent from Brentford, where he had a phenomenal season last year, and I think we've already seen in the first three games with his save at Wolves, his save in the Aston Villa game from Ollie Watkins as well, that David Raya is a phenomenal signing for Arsenal and one they definitely had to make permanent. Then you go ahead and you think about, okay, what other areas in the side did Arsenal need to reinforce? And you think to yourself, okay, left back, probably definitely they needed to reinforce that area, because if you think about Zinchenko, who's there out and out left back, and he had some injury issues, he can't really be trusted for a whole course of the season with the new Champions League format as well, the extra games. Arsenal probably wanted to go further in the competitions as well. Definitely need left back. And you think about that Jurgen Timber's only just come back from an ACL injury. You can't really trust him to play week in, week out. You need to give him time, to really adjust to his body and, get used to Premier League football again. So that's fine. And then you think about Jakub Kiwior, who debuted for us in the back end of last season, did really well in my opinion, but obviously he does have a few deficiencies in this game. He's defensively okay. I mean, playing left back probably didn't suit him, but if you really think back to the Bayern Munich game, and they were basically camping out on Arsenal's left hand side because they knew that if there's a weak point in the Arsenal defence, it's Jakub Kiwior. So I can understand them bringing in Riccardo Calafiori. He's probably not going to play as much as left back as I thought initially that he maybe is going to play. I think he's maybe going to play and debut as more as a left centre back as well, and has the option to play left back as well. I think there will be some games where defences will just be sitting so deep against Arsenal, and I think that maybe having Calafiori as a bit more of a ball carrier through that back line, not just Gabriel, because I think Gabriel defensively is solid. He's one of the best. I don't think there's too many areas where he can improve in, but on the ball, I definitely think that Calafiori is a better option and one that could really help Arsenal progress. And if you think about it, another way for Arsenal to start up and build up attacks from the back. So I think Calafiori is a good signing. I'd also think about the midfield. They definitely need another midfielder. And I think bringing in Mikel Merino is a good signing. What I will say about Merino, though, is I don't think he's that outstanding midfielder that maybe we thought Arsenal were going to go for in the summer. He's not going to be starting week in, week out alongside Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, who in my opinion are Arsenal's two best midfielders. You think about it, he's probably going to be a bit more of a rotation option with the likes of Thomas Partey and Jorginho. So I don't think it's as set as, the midfielder is Declan Rice in the 6, Merino off the left and Odegaard off the right. I think there's going to be a bit more rotation there, and with Declan Rice having the ability to go forward and back, I think it's a good signing, because if you also think about the fact that you got Wanyeri coming into the side as well, you probably don't want to hamper his chance of getting into the Arsenal side. And then if you think about the forward areas, where Arsenal definitely needed an X factor. And when I say the X factor, I mean the world-class attacker, because obviously you've got that on the right-hand side, Bukayo Saka. That's set, that's sorted. But you need one more. And I don't think necessarily the number 9 was the key area. I mean, I think it's a world-class forward with an X factor. I don't think it had to be number 9, because I think Havertz is doing a good job. I think Trossard's doing a good job. Martinelli, we're going to have to wait and see if he can pick up his form. You know that Jesus can't be trusted with injuries. So they've gone out and got Raheem Sterling on a loan. And I think that loan deal works in Arsenal's favour, because Chelsea are paying, half of his wages. So I think the fact that Arsenal have got Sterling on a 1-year deal, and the fact that he's worked with Mikel Arteta while he was assistant at Manchester City, is a good deal. But then when you look at it, is he the X factor? I don't think so. Is he still more than capable Premier League forward player who can probably bag loads of goals and be the deputy to Bukayo Saka on the right hand side? I think yes, absolutely. But is he the world-class striker or forward player that Arsenal need? I don't think so. Is Mikel Merino the world-class midfielder that Arsenal needed or maybe wanted? I don't think so. But I do think they've done good business. I personally, I'm going to leave Arsenal, I think, in solid, because I don't think they've had a great summer. If they were maybe to get the likes of Victor Osimhen or Benjamin Sesko, who could see having the potential to really explode at Arsenal under Mikel Arteta, then I think you could say, okay, fine, great summer, maybe even world-class winner. But for me, I think with the business Arsenal done, I think you've got to give a credit to the amount of sales they've done as well. Smith Rowe and Nketiah, Ramsdale, it looked for a while as if they were holding out for too much money and no club were going to come in for them. I think Arsenal have done all right. And I think solid is a good place for them to be. Okay, so next we've got Aston Villa, who, have been one of the biggest spenders in the summer transfer window, who unfortunately did have to sell for PSR issues, the likes of Moussa Diaby and Douglas Luiz, who I think Douglas Luiz is definitely the bigger miss because when you watch Aston Villa, it seemed like Unai Emery was definitely barking orders at Douglas Luiz. He was the one at the centre of that midfield who was orchestrating the entire Aston Villa play, and without him, I thought he was going to be a massive, massive miss. Moussa Diaby, who I am a bit surprised he did decide to go to Al Ittihad. I can understand that it's life-changing money, but I did think that only 1 year at Aston Villa, 1 year in the Premier League, he had so much more to offer, and only this time last year, what they're saying, like, I think some top sides have missed out on getting Moussa Diaby because he could be potentially a Mohamed Salah replacement for Liverpool. He could be the right-hand side answer for Manchester City. And so now that he's gone, it's a bit disappointing. But I think for the money that Aston Villa have to basically recoup their fee and make a tiny margin of profit, I don't think it's a bad deal, especially when you consider the signings that Aston Villa have made on the ins. I think Amadou Onana, who we all thought was a good player at Everton, I don't think anyone thought he was a world-class player at Everton. However, the thing with Amadou Onana is, if you were to build your perfect midfielder and you would say, right, I need him to have height, I need him to be strong, I need him to be technical and good on the ball, I need him to drive and be able to go forward, but also be good defensive solidly, you would create a player who would look a lot like and have the characteristics of Amadou Onana. But then there's something about him that he hasn't just quite excelled at that next level. Now, maybe that at Everton, with all the circumstances going on with their, with the background, with the ownership, and the fact that the style of play that Everton played, then maybe he wasn't given the opportunity to excel. But what I've seen in the first 3 games from him is that he's definitely a player who has got levels to go to, and he's definitely showing that. I think he's already taken one step forward in another level, and I think he's got a few more to go as well. So for me, I actually think that Amadou Onana has been a fantastic signing so far, but I'm trying not to talk about the first 3 games because that might maybe skew. What have I thought about the transfers themselves? Well, you think about everyone else, well, Ian Matson, I think left back was definitely an area they could have improved. Alex Moreno has obviously gone out the club as well. They still got Luca Digne as well, who's the first choice. And I think with Champions League football as well, having a player who played the Champions League final is definitely not a bad thing to have. And I think about some of the more squad players, the likes of Jaden Philligan, Samuel Lang Jr., who has gone back out on loan, Lewis Dobbin, which I don't really understand. I think that was Aston Villa being caught up in the PSR deadlines and being close to the financial line there. You think about Ross Barkley, who's a fantastic squad player as well. And you think about they've still got Boubacar Kamara to come back from his injury in November time as well. The fact that they've also kept a hold of John Duran as well, I think, to be a backup to Ollie Watkins. I think, he's only growing and becoming a better footballer. So I think that Aston Villa have done a lot of really good business. They've not only bought well to really help the first team squad and also the bench as well with the Champions League football. I know they went far in the Conference League last season, but I think the quality of difference is going to really catch up with Villa, and I also think that having a better squad is really going to help them rotate. I mean, if you've seen the likes of Ollie Watkins in the first 3 games, he hasn't looked as sharp as he did last season, so I think that's a big thing. And the fact that, all in all, they've only made a loss of 30 million euros, I think it's been pretty good signings and pretty good window for Aston Villa. So I actually think that they've got to be a little bit higher than solid. I'm going to put them in great summer. I don't think as a world-class window because I don't think that any of us are thinking from the sign that Aston Villa made is not only did they finish Champions League last year, they've actually going to go further this year. I think it's just to reinforce the window they've had, and I think they've had a great summer. All right, next up is Bournemouth, who I want to talk about the incomings, but we have to talk about the outgoings first because the big one, obviously, is the one of Dominic Solanke to Tottenham Hotspurs. And obviously, he was the main talisman, the main goal to the last season, 19 goals, 3 assists, 22 goal contributions, around 40% of all of Bournemouth's goals he was involved in. And so I think that is a massive, massive loss for Bournemouth, and one that, he left and all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, maybe Bournemouth might be slipping down the table. I was thinking about it, and like maybe Bournemouth and Iraola could maybe work their way into the top 10, maybe have an outside shout for European place as well. But with the absence of Dominic Solanke, I got a little bit worried. However, they really surprised me with the addition of Evan Nilsson, who I thought maybe Bournemouth could get a striker like him. I didn't think they could get a striker of his caliber. Clearly, yes, Bournemouth are paying him, a lot of money to be able to be playing at the Vitality Stadium. And it's one where when he got rumoured and linked with Bournemouth, I thought no chance. Surely there's no chance that he's going to be going to Bournemouth. But he did. He's made the move. And while he hasn't scored a goal yet, I think he is a phenomenal player, and just a matter of time. Just get that one, and then he'll hit the ground running, and he'll be a great asset for Bournemouth as well. But you also think about the other signings as well, making Lewis Inster permanent, making Enders Unal a permanent as well, signing the young players of Araujo from Barcelona and Hodgson from Juventus. You got Paulson as well from Wellington, Daniel Jebinson on a free from Sheffield United, which I think is smart business, and Kepa Arrizabalaga from Chelsea as well, because obviously Neto went to Arsenal and they needed a keeper who was a little bit better. So I'm actually pretty optimistic with Bournemouth's transfers. I think I definitely addressed some key areas in the squad. If you think about where Bournemouth want to be, I think obviously they spent a lot of money and they've lost about 35 million euros worth over the course of the window. But I think that if you look at the squad as a whole, is it more of an irregular side? Yes. Is it a better squad than it was before? I'd say yes. I think Hodgson is going to be a great addition for them at the back. He's just going to need a few more minutes and to get himself into it. And I think that once Evan Nielsen hits the ground running, the Bournemouth are going to be a great side. Unbeaten so far in the Premier League. I think 1 win and 2 draws. And obviously the late comeback against Everton. But it does show that they're okay. I don't think they're fantastic. So where am I going to put Bournemouth? I think I'm going to put them. I'm going to keep them in solid. I think had they kept Dominic Solanke and then added Evan Nielsen as well, I think maybe a great summer, because then you could really have that backup and you can even have the option of playing them 2 up front. I think in the absence of Dominic Solanke losing in Tottenham, I think they've recruited well in other areas and they've replaced Solanke well, but I can only really keep him in solid for now, I think. Alright, up next is Brentford. And similar to Bournemouth, the main talking points around Brentford, rather than the incomings, come from the fact that one of the big outgoings is one of the strikers, and it is Ivan Toney, who eventually did leave and joined Al Ahly for around £40 million. And yeah, I think that's a good bit of business for for Brentford, considering the amount of money that they bought Ivan Toney for, and now you're selling him for with 1 year left in his contract. And it is a saga that rumbled on throughout the whole summer. Clearly, Brentford, while he's a very talented player, one of the talismans in the last couple of years, clearly they wanted him to go because they spent all their money on Iker Thiago from Club Brugge in January, which they spent officially this summer. And so they've already signed up the Ivan Toney replacement, so they needed Ivan Toney to go. So the fact that he did go, I think is a positive, because I think even Brentford fans were saying, look, we trust the club, we trust Thomas Frank, this is our club model. In order to progress, we need to sell the players at the highest level, let them move on for high fee, and then replace them with younger players who are going to be the future for us. So Ivan Toney leaving, I think, was a good bit of business for Brentford. Signing Iker Thiago, unfortunately, he's injured until probably December, so that is a bit of a blow. But when you think of the likes of Mbeumo and Wissa up front, who are still doing a phenomenal job, I think, yeah, Brentford can be very happy. They've also bolstered the squad, which is something that they desperately needed to do, because with a couple of injuries last season and African Cup of Nations as well, the Brentford squad did look very, very thin. And so I think the likes of Sepp van der Berg, who I don't think is going to be a starter from Liverpool, but I think he's going to be more of a squad player and work his way to, maybe growing into that Brentford squad. You also got the likes of Fabio Carvalho, who I think is probably a bit more ahead in his development than Sepp van der Berg. I think he's ready to really compete for one of his midfield places and start to become a real talisman in that midfield eventually by the end of the season. I also think of like the Nunes and McHomer, who I think are just more players who are youngsters who are going to be developing in this Brentford squad, because if you look at it, they're just a team of solid Premier League players who got a little bit of flair up front, like Kevin Schade has got another year on him, Lewis Potter got another year. And so I think the additions that Brentford have made have been smart. They've also sold well, not only Toney, but like David Raya, who they officially got the money for this summer. And so I can see it where it's just another solid season for Brentford. I think if they maybe signed another player, maybe in the midfield to forward areas, you could really propel them a little bit further, maybe spend a little bit more than they did on Fabio Carvalho, but that's not Brentford's model, that's not how they operate. So for me, I think, it is very much just another solid window. And next up, we've got Brighton, who a lot of people have been very positive about Brighton this season and Fabian Hurtzler. And I think I'm going to carry on with that. I don't think there's too much negative to talk about. If you think about the fact they bought in Hurtzler from FC Pauli in the second division of the Bundesliga, and then you bring him to Brighton, you got to back him. And Brighton have absolutely backed him. I mean, if you think about all of these signings, like Rutter from Leeds, Minter from Newcastle, Pfeiffer from Feyenoord, Gruter from Mainz, Cadiloglu from Fenerbahce, Matt O'Reilly, who I think is a fantastic signing. Such a shame he's out injured already. But you also think about Osman Yalkoué from Gothenburg, who I saw him in pre-season for Brighton when I was looking at them, trying to see how they set up. He looks like a player, and he's only 18 as well. And if you think about the outgoings as well, Dennis Undav for, just over £20 million to Stuttgart, Billy Gilmore to Napoli, Pascal Gross, which at the time I was very disappointed with Pascal Gross because I think he's been an era defining for Brighton in the last few years in the Premier League. And I think when you think about the Graham Potter and the De Zerbi area of Brighton in the Premier League, I think, if you think about an iconic player, maybe think about Lewis Dunk, I think there's a great chance you also think about Pascal Gross. I think he's been fantastic for them, and it's a real shame that he's had to leave. But it is what it is. He was getting on a bit, and Dortmund were offering decent money for him, so I can understand that one. But yeah, if you look about all the signings that they made, I think it's absolutely fantastic. In addition, most importantly, to the players that they already have, you already think about Danny Welbeck, who's not the flashiest of all centre forwards, but he's a fantastic foil for everyone else. If you think about the players behind him, João Pedro, Mitoma, and Ciso, who they already had, and now adding Minter, James Milner, who's incredibly experienced and who can help integrate all of these players, along with Lewis Dunk. If you think about Jason Steele in goal as well, who probably rotates. But yeah, I think Brighton have really, really gone out there and really showed their intent. I mean, they spent, 231 million euros. Sorry, it's in euros. I'm looking at transfer market. And if you think about, the incomings of just under £50 million as well. So I think Brighton have had a fantastic window. And if you think about it, the players they brought in now, the likes of Minter, Newcastle will be crying out for him on the right wing. I know they have PSR issues, and a side like Brighton were capitalising on it. But I think arguably they've had one of the signings, one of the windows of the summer with the amount of signings that they've made. It's just the thing is, how is everyone going to fit into the squad? I'm not quite sure. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, it's going to be a rotation, but Brighton without any European football this season, I think going to be absolutely fantastic and great to watch. Every top side, is going to come against Brighton and think, God, we can either win like 2-1 or 3-1 this game, or it's going to be a really tough game and we're going to lose 2-1 or 3-1. So I think Brighton will be incredibly exciting. Maybe I really like Van Hecke and Lewis Dunk as centre-back partnership. Maybe they needed a little bit more depth in the centre-back partnerships, and maybe that could be an area for going forward they could try and address. But if you think about all the other business it's done, all the attacking players, all the midfielders that are brought in, I mean, Max Pfeiffer is going to be fantastic. I can just see it. He's going to go for 50 million plus in a few years. So I think Brighton have had a fantastic window, one of the windows of the summer. And so I'm going to put them in a world-class window, because when you think about it, what more could they have done to back new manager Fabian Hölzer? What more could they have done to really excel and get themselves back into Europe next season? I think they've done everything they possibly can, considering the amount of money they spend as well. For me, Brighton have definitely had a world-class window. And then from Brighton, let's move into Chelsea, who have divided opinion. I think it's fair to say all summer long with what's been going on at Chelsea. And let's not talk about off the field, the ownership and everything. Let's just talk about the players and the transfer window itself. If you look at the players they brought in, Pedro Neto, Joao Felix, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, Philip Jorgensen, Penders, Alsamino, Vega, Willie, Gueye, Adebayo, they've not brought in too many bad players. Now, the question is with Chelsea is the squad building. What's going on with the squad building? What are the plans for Chelsea going forward? And that we don't really know. But if you think about the players who are going to come in and improve that first team, you think to yourself, Pedro Neto, yeah, it's going to improve the first team. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall is probably going to be a squad player. Joao Felix, is he going to get to play in that number 10 position? It's probably going to be Cole Palmer, maybe Nkunku. He's going to be a bit of a squad player. And the amount of money spent on him probably isn't great, but we'll have to wait and see. Jorgensen, yeah, he's a fine goalkeeper from Villarreal, but did Chelsea need an out-and-out goalkeeper who's going to be the number one and cement his place between the sticks? Probably. Adebayo is a good signing on a free. I don't hate it. I don't really see how he fits into it, considering he's probably going to be, fifth choice centre-back. And Vega, who's probably a midfielder, but probably can debut as a left-back as well, with Ben Chilwell not being favoured. I don't hate the signings. What I will say is, though, there are two big issues. Goalkeeper and centre-forward. Nicola Jackson is undoubtedly a good centre-forward who is improving and getting better and better and better. But is he the world-class signing that they needed? No. I mean, Chelsea were linked all summer with Victor Osimhen, considering that he's gone to Galatasaray on loan. and the amount of money that Chelsea spent, Victor Osimhen would have been perfect, absolutely perfect for Napoli. With Lukaku also leaving to join Napoli, there's definitely a deal to be done there if they were willing to pay that much for Osimhen, and I think they definitely could have. Think about the goalkeeper, Jurgensen coming in. It's okay, but if you think about the goalkeepers on the market, they definitely could have got out there and got themselves a world-class goalkeeper between the sticks. And all of a sudden, if you think about, regardless of how many players that they have, but the talent of those players in the midfield and the attacking areas in the defence, and with a world-class 9 and a goalkeeper between the sticks, they could have absolutely, probably become favourites for the top 4 position. I think so, especially if you think about in the European football they're playing this season is the Conference Leagues, which are, they're going to play the second string side in, so they're not probably going to care about it too much. So I think there was definitely something to be missed. And if you think about this tier list, it needed to be better. Yes. Was it okay? Yes. I don't think it'd be solid. But also with the outgoings, if you think about Ian Maatsen, he definitely could have done a job for Chelsea as well. Conor Gallagher, Lewis Hall, Romelu Lukaku, Omari Hutchinson, Angelo Moreira. Losing Thiago Silva, losing that experience, I think is going to be a slightly bigger of a blow than we all think, especially in the fact that Reece James is the captain and he's never fit. Enzo Fernandez is now the captain, which is a whole different situation. I'm unsure with Chelsea. I mean, their transfer window, they've only lost 40 million euros, so they're actually done all right business. Raheem Sterling going out on loan, Brower going out on loan. I don't think it can be solid because if you think about the key areas, striker and goalkeeper, what's going into this window, everyone thought Chelsea needed to address those areas. They haven't done that. So it's only okay at the best. And you think about what are the aims for Chelsea, they need to be getting in top 4 because considering the amount of money they spend on players, they're going to be losing money very, very quickly. So needed to be better. Maybe okay. I'm going to leave him in okay for now, but I think it's one where that can definitely change going forward. Okay, then we'll move on to Crystal Palace. Oliver Glasner's Crystal Palace. It's weird. Whenever it was Roy Hodgson in charge, I never used to say Roy Hodgson Crystal Palace, but now it's Oliver Glasner, as if Oliver Glasner is too good for Crystal Palace. I ended up saying Oliver Glasner Crystal Palace. But nonetheless, Crystal Palace, who a lot's been talked about Crystal Palace and the fact that they've been selling some of their players. And my take on losing Michael Elise and losing Joachim Andersen is it's good business for the club. Michael Elise is far too good a footballer to be being at Crystal Palace. I think that's fair to say. I mean that with no disrespect. But him going to Bayern Munich just shows that the level he's at and the level that he could potentially be going forward. So I've got no issue with that. I think maybe they could have tried to get a little bit more from Bayern Munich. I thought maybe the fee was on the slightly cheaper side, considering maybe what likes of Chelsea, as we just spoke about, spent on Pedro Neto. So I'm okay with that, considering that, most importantly, that Crystal Palace kept Eberechi Eze as well. Joachim Andersen going to Fulham. It is disappointing on a footballing basis because of the fact that Fulham are a side that you're probably competing with and probably looking at as being very similar in the table. They come in with about £30 million and he has to go. So that's disappointing. However, if you look at it, 28 years of age, 29 this season, you're either going to be selling him or offering him a new contract. And arguably offering him a new contract and even higher wages. Now is probably the optimum time to be selling Joachim Andersen. And yes, it is a blow because it does take the wind out of your sails a little bit. It does, nullify all that optimism you had towards the end of the season coming into the summer. And it does maybe keep Crystal Palace stagnating to where they were rather than putting them ahead and going forward. Because imagine Crystal Palace side, which they kept Andersen, which they kept Elise, and plus the additions that they made, I think maybe talking about a great summer and probably seeing Crystal Palace even going further and further ahead. But I do think that they've still had an okay summer, despite the fact they lost Sam Johnson, Jordan Ayew, the players who would really have bolted out the squad and been squad players as well. If you think about the incomings, Eddie Nketiah, I think, is a really good signing. I think Maxim Lacroix from Wolfsburg to replace Joachim Andersen is a great signing. I think Chaddy Wright is a great signing as well because he's going to get better and better and better. To replace Michael Elise, you've got Ismail Assar and Daichi Kamada as well. You've got Matt Turner on the loan deal as well. Trevor Chalobah from Chelsea on the loan. So while the summer started off really positive and thinking of the excitement of what Crystal Palace could do this summer, with the middle part being very much, oh God, here we go again, selling all of our best players. We're undercutting ourselves, not going to be good enough next year. To the last few days where You brought in a lot of good players, and I think the feeling of the majority of the summer of, oh god, what we're doing is, I think that's kind of nullified, and you're kind of back on the up now as well. So it's a tough one because I don't think it's a great summer. I think keeping a hold of your best players last year would have meant that you would have had a great summer. I think for now it's probably, I don't know. Keeping a hold of Mark Gay was a fantastic bit of business, and credit to Steve Parish on that one for standing for him, saying we want this much for Mark Gay. You either stump it up or you don't in Newcastle. So is it? You could put it in okay. I think the way it ended, just with bringing the last few signings, I think it can just be solid. So that might be one again. In my final thoughts at the end of the video, I might end up changing, but I'm going to leave Crystal Palace in solid for now. Right, Everton. Who, one of those clubs, like I mentioned with Aston Villa, who got caught up in the PSR deadline transfers at the end of June, and they ended up having to sell some really promising young talent. Obviously, the likes of Amadou Onana to Aston Villa, who we spoke about, selling Ben Godfrey to Atalanta for the amount of money for like £10 million probably isn't the end of the world. It's probably good business for Everton, considering the fact that he's not a regular starter. Selling Lewis Dobbin to Aston Villa, not great considering the fact that I maybe saw him as going up in my expectations slowly and gradually. Neil Maupay, yeah, obviously that's fine. Mason Holgate going on loan, that's probably getting Mason Holgate out of the club. But I think, again, like a couple of these clubs, keeping a hold of your best players, losing Amadou Onana was a massive blow. But keeping a hold of Jared Brantwaite, who, in my opinion, I never saw him leaving this summer, despite the fact that Man United were coming in for him, despite the fact that Liverpool were linked with him late on the winter, is really strange. I never thought that they were going to sell him because, despite the whole ownership thing going on with Everton, I always thought to myself that you sold Amadou Onana, you'd probably be fine. That's what I had in my head. I think signing Timur Abunam from Aston Villa, who again was probably in that PSR deadline window thing, I actually think he's been Everton's best player in the first 3 games. Yes, he was at fault for a couple of goals in Bournemouth, the most recent one, but I thought he was knackered, and I thought the whole team were knackered. And yeah, I think Timur Abunam has been a fantastic signing so far, especially for the price. Bring in Illiman and Dye to really fresh up the number 10 position and compete with Abdullah Decore. Good signing. Lindstrom, unknown from Napoli, who's a wide player with a bit more pace, which is definitely what something Everton need. Exciting, especially on the loan as well. Signing Amanda Brea on a loan transfer is probably okay, probably not the permanent transfer and the permanent number 9 signing that they need to sort out that XG difference, which they massively underperformed last season. And signing Jacob Bryan from Olympique Lyonnais, obviously the former Crystal Palace centre back. Strange that Sean Dyche hasn't started him yet in the absence of Jared Brantwaite, but I think that's Sean Dyche is integrating him into the side. I'm a bit torn on Everton because, again, I don't think I can put them in solid, because I think putting them in solid would mean that they probably sorted out the right back issue, because they got Ashley Young, who's ancient, and his deputy is Seamus Coleman, who's club legend but also ancient as well. I think they needed to sort out the right back position. Needed to probably sort out a permanent solution to the number 9 position, because you got Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a 1-year deal who's left. Is he going to sign? Is he going to leave? Just there's no point selling him now, and I don't think he'd end up. You can't sell him now because he probably end up wanting to leave next summer on a free anyway. I think Beto, another season in the Prem, would he do any better? You'd hope so, probably. You've also, Everton probably needed to reinforce that area as well. You've also sold Neil Maupay as well, so he's not an option. He probably didn't want him to be an option anyway. You can definitely put Everton, he needed to be better. You could probably put them in okay as well, because they have reinforced a squad, with like O'Brien and Dye, Irbunum. Some of them are going to be straight in the first team, which is a reassuring sign. Probably been relying on a lot of your players to be fit for the whole season. Again, I think I'm going to put them in okay. You could put both Chelsea and Everton in needed to be better. You really could. I am going to put Everton in needed to be better, just because if you consider the minimum requirement for Everton is stay in the Premier League, first 3 games, lost all 3 games. That's not a worry, in my opinion, because of the fact that they lost all 3 games in August last season, and they did that the season before as well. So they still managed to stay in the Premier League. But when your objective is just stay in the Premier League, get yourself to the next season, get yourself into the new stadium, get the new revenue coming into the club. They would, again, like Chelsea, But I think with Chelsea is they already have a level of players who are able to maybe compete if everything goes right. I think Everton, they needed to be better because they needed to sort out the nine position. They need to get the right back position. And so it's a tough one, but I'm going to keep Everton and needed to be better. All right, then we'll move on to Fulham FC, or should I maybe more appropriately say Vibes FC. And I've been really, really liking Fulham's transfers. And I think when you look at the way that they play as well, they're super, super exciting. And it is just, Sasha Lukic deputising for João Palhinha, who they sold to Bayern Munich, who, I don't think you could really stop Palhinha leaving and joining Bayern Munich. I think he was always destined for more, but I think that's a perfect type of transfer. Signing him for about 20 to 25 million from Sporting Lisbon and then flipping him for almost double to a club like Bayern Munich, that's great business on Fulham's part. But, they signed Sander Berg, who isn't a player who's of the quality of João Palhinha, but I don't think any player coming in would have been. And I think that Sasha Lukic is doing a great job deputising, really anchoring that midfield with the likes of Andres Pereira playing in the right side in number 10 position, and Ema Smith Rowe, who they signed from Arsenal, from a left side, who's playing like left side in number 10 as well. And he's just really anchoring nothing because they're all just going and attacking, and it's super fun and exciting to watch, if I'm being honest. But then you've also got the likes of Joachim Andersen returning to the club from Crystal Palace, signing him from the likes of Palace, who are a side who are going to be in and around where Fulham are going to be in the table as well. And then bringing him in and adding him to the defence, considering the fact that they lost Tosin on a free to Chelsea. So that was a great bit of business, as well as Cunha from Villarreal. I think he's going to be one for maybe the future, signing for relatively cheap from Villarreal. And also the deadline day of stealing Reece Nelson off of Leicester City, bringing him in to replace the wide areas, because you've got him, you've got Ryan Sessegnon, who's going to be kind of deputised the left back for Anthony Robinson, but they can also play in the forward positions as well. I think him coming back to a familiar environment, somewhere he's known and somewhere where he could really thrive again and get some minutes, I think is a good signing for him. And the fact that you think about the players that lost, João Palhinha, you signed Sander Berg, and Sasha Lukic doing a great job. You lost Willian and Bob Decker-Ruud in the wired areas, and you've got Ryan Sessegnon and Reece Nelson who can do that. Losing Tosin, and you're buying Anderson, who arguably is maybe a better centre-back than Tosin was. I know it's hard because Tosin's a bit younger, he's been at the club as well, and how is Anderson going to fit in? Who knows, but I think you can make an argument that Anderson's a better player than Tosin. Just Tosin is free, so maybe that's why spending the money on Anderson doesn't feel as good. And then obviously Ema Smith Rowe, who's just full of energy, full of running, so exciting. He's got his socks down and he's dribbling up players, and it's just vibes for them. And selling Stansfield to Birmingham for a record fee for League One, and what's that stat that with that signing, Birmingham City of Stansfield and their record fee in League One is higher than the Scottish Premier League's highest ever transfer fee for a player incoming, so that's absolutely mental as well. And yeah, to only lose about 20 million at the end of the transfer window, recruiting really well, and I think most importantly, Marco Silva is still at the club. I mean, I maybe selfishly, maybe sillily, is that a word? Maybe foolishly, we'll go foolishly, had Fulham maybe outside contenders for a relegation fight, but seeing the transfer business that they've done, despite the fact that it's really late, I am maybe willing to put Fulham in great summer. Have they done better? Yeah, because I think for Fulham it will stay exactly where you were in the league last season. I don't think it was massively go for the top 10. I don't think it's stay in the don't make sure you're out of a relegation fight. But I think with Fulham, because of the players that they've lost, there was a worry that maybe they could step back down. But with the players that they've bought, and now it's a bit more exciting as well with the players that they've bought, that I think maybe you can say it's a great summer. So yeah, I'm going to keep him great summer. I'm happy with that. Which brings us on to Ipswich Town. And I've actually really, really liked their transfers this summer, because often the new promoted side comes up to the Premier League, and sometimes, especially in recent years, because of the fact that it's so difficult for them to stay up, you often don't see them giving it a go and spending the cash. But Ipswich spent 126.49 million euros this summer, and that they've lost most of that. They haven't sold too many players and haven't made too much money, so they've actually given it a proper go. And I'm really excited because they've signed the best players from the Championship. Even if they were to go down, you'd probably expect them to come straight back up, but they've given themselves a chance, and I think that's all you can hope for if you're an Ipswich Town fan. Give yourselves a chance. So Amari Hudson on a permanent, who was so important for them last year, and him joining on a permanent, I think is great business for Ipswich. signing Jacob Reeves, one of the best defenders in the Championship last year from Hull City. Liam Delap, who was also at Hull City, and we saw him in the most recent game against Fulham, and we really saw how good a centre forward he could be. And it's not just about the goals and assists, although they are so important for a side like Ipswich. It's also about the link-up play, and can he do the dirty yards as well for them? And he absolutely can. Signing Jack Clark from Sunderland. I mean, how Jack Clark hasn't been signed by another club previously and very early on, because he's been doing it for Sunderland for a little while now, I think is astounding. And the fact that Ipswich got him is a great signing. Dara Shea from Burnley, it's a good signing for them in the league last year. Did it right, and now he's used to it, so he can really help out and have that experience for Ipswich. You've also got Sammy Smodics, top goal scorer in the Championship for Blackburn Rovers. Now coming in, you saw him already get a goal against Man City. I think he's going to be a real signing, especially for the fee as well, about £10 million. That's a great signing. Muric from Burnley, he has unfortunately got injured quite early on. Didn't make the first game against Liverpool, but I think his ability to save teams and his shot stopping is really going to be crucial for Ipswich Town in goal. I also think Ogbene from Luton, he really impressed me, and I was quite surprised with how good he was for Luton last year. So him coming in, you also think about Townsend, who, from West Brom, 31 years of age, but he's going to be a squad player. You've also got Ben Johnson on a free transfer from West Ham, a player who's leaving a Premier League club to look for more Premier League minutes. I think it's a great signing. Cam Phillips on the loan. Yeah, if that works out as a signing, that could be potentially one of the signings of the season. And I'm saying that very optimistically, but think about what Ipswich Town need. They need control in that midfield. They need to be able to compete with these Premier League midfields who've got loads of power, really great, amazing technical players. And Cam Phillips, if he were to get fit and get the minutes, could be that for Ipswich. So they've given themselves a real chance, and that's why I'm excited about Ipswich Town, because that's all you can really ask for. Just give yourselves a chance, give it a go, and if they were to even go down, I think they'll be absolutely fine. So got a point against Fulham in the third game of the season, which for me was the first game of the season, because against Man City and Liverpool, do you really have a chance? They've given themselves an opportunity to stay in the league, and they've given it a right good go. So it's a great summer, definitely. Is it a world-class window? What are they missing for it to not be a world-class window? Because they've done everything right. If they were... Is it a world-class window? It's a tough one, because if they signed a striker who I knew guaranteed them maybe 15 Premier League goals, then I'd say it's a world-class window. I think Liam Delap could definitely do that. Oh, okay. So I'm going to leave Ipswich in great summer for now, and at the end I might come back and change it. I'm very tempted. Next is Leicester City, and from one newly promoted side who I was very optimistic with to one which is not the same, because obviously they've had the financial fair play and PSR issues hanging over their head, so they're a bit cautious about spending too much money. Clearly it seems like that's not going to be an issue, and Leicester are going to get away with it. That's only just recently as I'm recording this, so I'm not going to comment on it too much because I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But I think they need... The objective for Leicester City this season is to stay in the Premier League. With the signings they've made, can they achieve that? They can. The other issue is, will they? I mean, they've made some smart signings, of course. I mean, the likes of Otten Edouard on a loan from Crystal Palace, smart signing. Buonanotte from Brighton on a loan, smart signing. Bobby Decker over Reed, another smart signing. Giving him the 3 years, I think Fulham didn't want to give him. Jordan Ayew for, 5 million, rising up to 8 with add-ons. It's okay, but, at his age, is it a smart signing, or is it one that you need bodies through the door, you need a bit of Premier League quality, and he can maybe get you 5 to 6 goals over the course of a season? That's okay. I think Okoli from Atalanta is a decent bit of business. I'm not over the moon with it, but I'm also not disappointed with it. I mean, making sure Fatuawi from Sporting was made permanent, I think was imperative, and they've definitely done that. So that's definitely one tick. Signing Oliver Skip from Tottenham, 20 odd £million. That's okay, considering the fact that Leicester have lost Kieran Dewsbury-Hall as well, which obviously is going to be a big loss for them. He was so important for them last year in the Championship, getting, I think, maybe over 20 goal returns for them, be really being the instrument and the linchpin in that Enzo Maresca side. So losing him is going to be a big blow. Is replacing him with Oliver Skip the same? I don't think so. I think probably where the trajectories are at, I think Dewsbury is probably a better player now than Oliver Skip, maybe only just. So it's okay. And then obviously signing El Canuis from Genk at the last minute, in the last few days of the transfer window, that's fine. But again, he's still a very young player. And so you're going to be relying on the likes of Jamie Vardy at 37, 38-year-old Jamie Vardy. He's going to be drinking Red Bulls at half time just to get himself through a game. It's not solid. It's okay at best. But I think really, if we're being honest, Leicester's transfer window needed to be better. I really do think that they're getting themselves a mountain to climb. And can they stay in the Premier League? Yeah, absolutely they can. They've got some really good players. I think the midfield still is okay. It's got Premier League quality players, but the issue is they're all lower end Premier League quality players. I think the defence is, again, okay. I think the likes of James Justin, Ricardo Pereira, the Premier League quality fullbacks. Centre backs of, Faust, do I trust him week in, week out? Probably not. Mads Anderson in goal, he's okay, but he's still a young goalkeeper. I think Leicester needed to do more, and it's one where, maybe 2 or 3 signings more rather than just one. So I think they definitely needed to be better, and for me, I think that's quite obviously needed to be better. Right, Liverpool. Again, another tough one. So it's not a positive one for Liverpool, if we're being honest. Let's just get that out of the way. It's not a world-class window. It's not a great summer. We can now talk about maybe the middle solid or the bottom 2, because it's definitely not the other ones. Again, a bit like Chelsea. What did Chelsea need? They needed a number 9 and they needed a goalkeeper as the main 2 areas. Liverpool, I think it was 3 potentially. It was maybe defensive midfielder as the number 1 position. For the last 3 years they failed to address that. What was it initially? It was Tuchemani, and then it was the summer after that, which was Caicedo and then Lavia, and this year it's now Zubimendi. So 3 summers in a row they failed to sign a defensive midfielder who was the number 1 target, which is worrying. But also, if you think about the clubs that they're competing with for these signings, these are elite clubs and they're offering probably more in wages than Liverpool. Zubimendi just prefer like staying at home, prefers the landscape that there is. So that is what it is. And also he gave his word. So Liverpool did think they had that one in the bag. And I think for Liverpool fans, it's incredibly frustrating that they didn't get over the line. If you then think about the second position, probably a centre-back / left-footed centre-back. Last season, I think Liverpool got away with it because I don't think anyone could have realised how amazing Gerald Kwanzaa could have been. This year, they've got 4 centre-backs going into the season, 2 left-backs, and they really needed someone to maybe give Virgil van Dijk a rest every now and again, because I think going into this season with more Champions League games and Arne Slot definitely eyeing up Virgil van Dijk has been the main left centre-back, and Van Dijk is just getting older and older, you definitely need a bit of deputy there as well. So number 1 and number 2 position, which they definitely need to reinforce in the window, they haven't done. However, the emergence of Ryan Gravenberch as number 6 is promising, but we haven't seen him really tested as of yet. I don't know. The third one as well. A backup to Mo Salah, which I have done with signing Federico Chiesa, who for £10 million is not the end of the world. I mean, if it works out, great. Then it's a good bit of business. If it doesn't work out, then it is what it is. You've already spent £10 million, and relatively to what these big clubs can offer nowadays, that's okay. So I don't think you can say it's solid. I think maximum it can be is okay, because similar to Chelsea, they've still got the quality of players to maybe achieve their objective anyway, which for me, for Liverpool this season, is minimum is just to be back in the top 4. And I think they can do that without signings. So it didn't need to be better. It needed to be better if Liverpool wanted to compete for the league and really challenge the likes of Man City and Arsenal, in my opinion. But that's just based on the transfers. Based on the first 3 games, there's potentially me going, maybe they could challenge anyway. But just on the transfers themselves, I think they're okay. I mean, they've signed obviously Georgia Mahashashvili from Valencia, they loan back out. He's coming back next year. And I think next year, looking at it with Queven Kelleher only having 1 year on his deal, a player who Liverpool probably really wanted to sell this summer because his value was probably really, really high. Next year, I think he will be being sold, and Mahashashvili will be coming in as a backup to Alisson Becker. So that's fine. That's forward planning, but that's maybe fourth on the list of things you need to do. Chiesa was third on the list of things you need to do, and not addressing 1 and 2, similar to Chelsea. But I think the difference between Everton and Leicester is Liverpool already have the players to achieve their objective anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna put Liverpool in okay, but that's probably maybe being a bit generous. Right, next up, Manchester City, who, it's a weird one. Another side who have been dominated by the players that they've sold rather than the players they brought in. Obviously, I'm talking about Julian Alvarez, who went to Atletico Madrid for an eye-watering 75 million euros. That's probably going to be a little bit more with add-ons as well in a few years' time. But yeah, it's a shame because obviously when he came in, he was obviously going to be the number 2 to Erling Haaland, and he can play in a number of positions like the attacking midfield role, left wing, right wing as well. And can you really replace a player like him with that quality? I don't think you can, if we're being honest. So I don't blame Manchester City for not really replacing Julian Alvarez, because who's going to come in of his quality? World Cup winner as well, won the treble in Manchester City, won everything there is. It's going to be really, really hard. But the players that they have brought in, Savinho from Troy, he was obviously on loan at Girona last year. Fantastic signing. He already looks like an absolute baller out on that right hand side, not the left hand side he was at Girona, on that right hand side, and you can already see him being Riyad Mahrez regen. So I think he's going to be a fantastic signing for them going forward. Also, you got Ilkay Gundogan coming back in on a free transfer after Barcelona just didn't want to pay his wages anymore after falling out. Yeah, that's a weird one, but you're adding end of season Gundogan to a side who have already won the Premier League 4 seasons in a row, the treble just 2 seasons ago. Yeah, I think Man City are going to take some stopping as well. Yes, they haven't got a Erling Haaland backup. Yes, they haven't got a Rodri backup. But if you already see at the beginning of the season, like some Mateo Kovacic do a fantastic job there, you could probably have Gundogan play in that position as well. Rico Lewis could probably do a job for you. Bernardo Silva. They've got the positions covered. They'll have to play slightly differently if some of their key players were to be out injured, but I think they'll be absolutely fine. I mean, I think another plus for them is Edison, who was linked constantly with joining the Saudi Arabia this season, constantly being linked with them, and he stayed as well. And rumours were that Stefan Ortega would end up becoming the number 1. They wouldn't sign a replacement. Would have been interesting to see how it had done. Maybe that could have been a weakness in Manchester City's back line, but I think for me, they're fine, aren't they? And I think, considering the amount of money they've made this summer, 116 million pounds, euro, in net profit this summer, I think Man City are absolutely fine. So I'm gonna put them in solid, because it's definitely not a great summer, because they needed to sign replacements for Julian Alvarez, a backup to Haaland and Rodri. Is it okay? It could be okay. It could be needed to be better, if we're being honest. But I think it's definitely okay. And I think they're solid. I think they are solid. I mean, they haven't necessarily signed the backups they needed, but I think that they're going to be absolutely fine. You've got the young players coming in as well. You got McAtee on the right hand side as well. You got O'Reilly. I think Man City will be fine. So I'm going to keep them in solid, a little bit above Chelsea and Liverpool. And then you've got Manchester United, who have spent a lot of money this summer. If you think about the players that they've brought in, with the likes of Lenny Yoro, Manuel Ugarte, Matthias de Ligt, Joshua Zirkzee, Mazraoui, I am quite impressed with the signings that they made, because I think they brought in players in positions that they needed 100%. Man United definitely needed another striker, because Haaland was the only one. They definitely needed a right back, but they're selling Wan-Bissaka, who was on his last year of his contract. So with Wan-Bissaka, you either have to renew his contract or you have to sell him. And I think that's in a similar situation with Scott McTominay, who was also 1 year on his contract. So at his age, 26, do you renew his contract, give him a 5-year contract, probably the biggest contract of his career, or do you have to sell him with 1 year left? So I can understand them selling both of them. They've also sold Mason Greenwood, Willie Camboila, Hannibal Majory to Burnley. I think not only have they bought well, they've actually sold decently as well this summer. And I'm quite optimistic about Man United's signings, not the football team itself, as we've seen for the first 3 games of the season, but the signings themselves have been good. The only thing that they didn't address, I would say, is probably the left-back area. With Luke Shaw continuously injured, with Tyrone Malacia, who we haven't seen, unfortunately, for over a year now. Who knows what player we're going to get when he comes back as well. So I really like Manchester United's signings this summer, and I think they suit Erik ten Hag and the style of play that he wants to play. I do maybe think that maybe Manuel Ugarte isn't the most proficient in his ball possession play as maybe Man United needed. I think they definitely needed a 6 who was good on the ball. I think Manuel Ugarte is definitely more of a destroyer than a Martin Zubimendi, who's been linked with Liverpool, who's more of a ball retention kind of number 6 and ball playing number 6. So maybe the profile for that number 6 position wasn't great, but I think everywhere else it's been absolutely perfect. And if you think about the outgoings as well, sorting out Jadon Sancho, selling Donny van de Beek, finally selling the players that they have for good money. I think we've really seen a change in Man United this summer, and going forward, I think if they keep doing the main summer signings correctly, then I think that they can get better and better and better. If that's with Erik ten Hag or not, we will have to wait and see. But I think for me, Man United are definitely in great summer. And was it a world-class window? I don't think so. I think Manuel Ugarte maybe isn't the right profile in number 6, but I think he's a good player who will be good for Man United. And they definitely sort out the left-back position as well. They're a little bit short maybe midfield. Yeah, I think I'm going to happy to keep Man United in great summer. Next up is Newcastle United, who haven't had a great window, if we're being completely honest. One plus that I do want to say to Newcastle fans and give you a little bit of encouragement is you've kept a hold of your best players. Now, there is a little bit of an asterisk there, but if you think about Alexander Isak, kept a hold of him. Bruno Guimaraes, kept a hold of him. You've also got a pretty decent spine with like Nick Pope. Sven Botman, when he comes back fit, would be great. You've also got like Anthony Gordon. So, Sandro Tonali returning from suspension. Joe Linton still there. So Newcastle have kept a hold of the majority of their spine and done really, really well in keeping a hold of those players. However, obviously there was the whole PSR deadline thing, which I have referred to numerous times in this video, and Newcastle were one of the sides caught up in it, and which meant that you had to sell Elliot Anderson to Nottingham Forest and Yakuba Minter to Brighton. Those are two players who would have been fantastic for Newcastle to have this season. I mean, Minter we've already seen for Brighton, and Newcastle fans, you probably already know this, and I'm probably just rubbing more salt into the wounds. Minter was the right-wing solution that you were looking for. He absolutely was. I'm convinced of it. I think he's a fantastic signing for Brighton, who really capitalised on the opportunity that was there, and I think he's going to be sold for 50 to 60 million plus in the future. I think he's an absolute baller and going to be a rising star. So that is incredibly disappointing. The next one, obviously, is Elliot Anderson, who's come through the club ranks from a young age, and who, is doing really, really well at Nottingham Forest. Played 3 for Forest, started 3 times. And again, I think it's another one who could have really, really helped in terms of the squad rotation as well. I think he's a fantastic player, really bright future, and going forward, he is another one which I've got an eye on and I'm investing a lot of stock in. So that is incredibly disappointing. But then you look at the incomings, Lewis Hall, who you already had last season, who had to make permanent from Chelsea. Vlachodimos, who he is just a PSR signing who Eddie Howe didn't really want. He's the third choice goalkeeper behind Nick Pope and Dubravka, and you need to ship him off as soon as you possibly can. William Masula for, £10 million from Sheffield United. Fine. I guess maybe Callum Wilson's getting a little bit more injury prone. Alexander Isak's clear number 1 centre forward, and so Sula's number 3 probably. Lloyd Kelly on a free transfer is fine. I think, considering the issues you have at centre-back as well, Fabian Schär getting sent off stupidly, but now he's back. So you got Lascelles and Botman out injured, and you got Emma Kraft as your backup centre-back when Schär and Byrne are there. So Local is definitely going to be needed as left-back and left centre-back cover. So it's okay. It's okay. It's not solid. It's absolutely not solid. It's okay. We're going to move Newcastle straight down to okay. Did it need to be better? If you go back and check my preseason predictions, I've actually got Newcastle doing alright. I've actually got Newcastle in 5th. Because I think the quality of players that you already have are really, really good. But if we're being honest, Newcastle, it needed to be better. It really needed to be better if you were going to get back to yourselves in the Champions League football. I think if you just to get yourself in European places, it would be fine. But the PSR deadline really, really screwed you guys, because Minter would have been perfect. I mean, I'm okay with Elliot Anderson going, but Minter, he is the one. And you already had him, and it's so disappointing. And obviously PSR and FFP needs to change, absolutely 100%. But I'm lost for words because I just think you had the player that you're really looking for, and I was really excited to see him play for Newcastle, and it's just not meant to be. So, yeah, need to be better. Alright, then is Nottingham Forest, who, in my opinion, have actually had a pretty good window. It's not been the carnage that we've experienced in the last few years where they've been signing loads of players and they've been selling loads of players and you don't know what's going on whatsoever. This one, I can actually see a plan, a structure, and I'm actually really, really excited to watch Nottingham Forest in the future this season. Think about the incomings, as I just mentioned, Elliot Anderson, who I'm really, really excited about. Really gutting Newcastle lost him, really excited Nottingham Forest. I've got him. Milinkovic from Fiorentina, £12 million. How Nottingham Forest have got him, first of all, and how you got him for that cheap is remarkable. I think he is a fantastic player and one where he's really going to be arguably one of your players this season going forward. You also think about Souza, Como, Morata, Jota Silva, who I'm really excited to see about as well, Carlos Miguel, James Ward-Prowse, Alex Moreno. I think Nottingham Forest, you can see a plan, you can see the structure, you can see the deficiencies in the squad, and you can see the players they brought in to replace him. I am really, really optimistic about Nottingham Forest. But not only the incomings, I think it's been really important with some of these clubs, and I think Nottingham Forest is one of them to highlight the outgoings as well. Selling Nyakade to Olympic UNA for just under £30 million. Lacademos who to Newcastle for the PSR deadline. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, selling him, getting him off the books, absolutely fine. Mangala to Lyon as well. Worrell to Burnley, Freuler to Bologna, and then releasing the likes of McKenna, So on a free transfer, loaning out several players as well who weren't going to be part of the squad. Felipe, who's retired, releasing Kouyaté, Hennessy, Harry Arter. I think Nottingham Forest, their transfer window has gone very much under the radar because it's been, in comparison to some others, very low key. But I think for me, the trajectory the club's going in, the players, the quality of the players that you brought in, and I can now see a plan and structure. Very, very exciting. And I'm going to put Nottingham Forest in a great summer because you did everything apart from maybe signing another centre forward. I think Chris Wood is fine. He's going to probably guarantee somewhere between 12 and 15 goals. I've got him in my fantasy football team. I think he's going to do well. Taiwo needs to be fitter. I think there is a real question marks about if you can rely on him for a whole season. I think the jury's out. I think the jury's probably leaning more towards no than yes at the moment. But I think in terms of the whole squad, I'm very, very happy with what Nottingham Forest have done. I can see a bright future for them going forward, and I'm going to put them in a great summer. Next then is the final of the newly promoted sides. It is Southampton, who, in the first 3 games of the season, my assessment of them hasn't been great, if I'm being honest, Southampton fans. I look at the signings that you made, and I'm very happy with most of them. I'm very happy with how Abel is coming in. I think, as a top championship, lower Premier League level centre-back who's got the potential to go upper levels and get better, fantastic signing. Aaron Ramsdale, England international from Arsenal, fantastic signing. Flynn Downs did great for you from loan from West Ham last season in the Championship. Him coming back was crucial, and I think he's a great signing. Ben Burton Diaz, for the fee that you bought him from, getting 6 goals for Sheffield United last season. I think this season, I think he will do really well. I think maybe, hopefully get around 10 goals, maybe 10 to 15 attacking returns. I think will be great signing. Sugawara, a player who I've had an eye on for a while now, and I think he will be great for Southampton going forward. Got the first goal of the Premier League season for you against Brentford on the weekend. Ronnie Edwards from Peterborough, Nathan Wood from Swansea, centre-backs for the future. Fine with those signings. Free transfers of Ryan Fraser, Adam Lallana, players who know the club. Fraser was on last season, did well. Lallana, who was previously at the club in the last time in the Premier League. Yes, and there might be some resentment there, but good signings. I'm generally really, really happy with Southampton's incomings. Where I have to criticise them, and I have to be honest in my opinion, is an example is the signing of Cameron Archer. I think, is he going to get you the goals you need? Is he going to be the main talisman for you? No, I don't think so. Is Adam Armstrong going to be the centre forward that you already have at your books based on what happened in the last few years in the Premier League? 2 goals in each of those 2 previous seasons? No, I don't think it's the one for you. And so I really am disappointed in the fact that I think Southampton needed a centre forward. I mean, yes, obviously you got more loan signings of Cornet and Ogochukwu. I just think there's a lack of goals. I really do think there's a lack of goals. And in what I've seen in the first 3 games, it seems like Southampton are really good in the middle third of the pitch, but are quite ineffective in both boxes. And that's the worst thing you can say, because you can say, what are Southampton good at? They're great at keeping the ball. Okay. Are you good at scoring goals? No. Are you good at keeping balls out of the back of the net? No. And I think defensively, you could be alright if the style of play was tweaked a little bit. I'm not saying change the whole philosophy that everything that Russell Martin's worked for completely. I'm just saying just tweak it slightly and adjust it like Vincent Kompany did with Burnley. But I think Vincent Kompany with Burnley did it way too late. There's only 3 games in the season. I think Southampton could very much do that and very much have a really solid defence. Going forward, I'm not impressed with it, if I'm being honest. I think they definitely need to sign a better quality centre forward than Cameron Archer. No offence to Cameron Archer, who has been at Villa recently, who was at Sheffield United last season. Didn't do great for Sheffield United, so is he automatically going to do worse or bad for Southampton? No. But has he got levels to go? I'm not sure just yet at the Premier League level. So they did really great business, Southampton, in every area of the pitch, apart from in those forward areas, in my opinion. So I'm going to say they did okay. They definitely needed to be better, but I think it's that one area, that one centre forward away from being a solid window, maybe even a great summer. But that is such a glaring omission for me. And signing Brendan Diaz, signing Maxwell Cornet, signing, who else did he sign? Cameron Archer. Great additions to the squad, but not to the starting 11 who can be relied upon week in, week out. So for me, it's just got to be okay. Right up next then is Tottenham Hotspur, who have had an okay transfer window, for being honest. I mean, the signing of Dominic Solanke could be an absolute game changer, having a focal point as a number 9 for this Ange Postecoglou side. I think they really, really missed him in the game against Newcastle, just to put the ball into the back of the net and take one of those chances. I think getting injured, quite unfortunate, but I think he should be back after the international break. So I'm very optimistic about Dominic Solanke. I think RG Gray is going to be a phenomenal talent going forward, and I think he could be that solution to England's number 6 problem, because I think Declan Rice could maybe be better for going forward, or not quite the right person there. And I think others young signings of Odegaard, Bergvall, Yang, I think they're all really great signings for the future, and Tottenham have really, got a real plethora of young talent who are going to really excel going forward. Now, there are some areas which they needed to address this summer, which they didn't quite do for me. I think one of them is the backup to Mickey van der Ven. As we saw in the game against Newcastle, he was out injured. Romero and Dragusin coming in, playing together, it's not quite the same. Mickey van der Ven, when he's out of the Tottenham Hotspur team, there is no other player like him with the qualities that he has. And the quality I want about is his pace. I really, really struggle to see how Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou looked at the squad and thought, with the games that he missed last season, it's okay not to sign a centre-back. It's just bewildering, if I'm being completely honest. Not only that, Destiny Udogie on the left-hand side. Yes, he's a fantastic player, but to not sign a replacement for him as well, maybe you sign one player, you could be backup to Mickey van der Ven and Destiny Udogie, who could rotate in and out of the side. But to not sign any player at left centre-back or left-back, I think is a bit of a mistake, and one which will potentially come to haunt them, especially in terms of the defence, because that was one of the areas that they definitely needed to improve upon. When they have the back four, the set of back four of Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, and Udogie fit, they're actually an okay side. They're actually an okay defence, who I think with all of them fit last year in the games they played, conceded the fourth least amount of goals, so which would put them in the top 4. But I just think they will have injuries, and you can think about the fact they've got Europa League football as well. I think to not reinforce that area was a mistake. I think everything else I'm okay with. I think okay with Dominic Solanke. I'm okay with Archie Gray. I'm okay with the wide players coming in. But yeah, that left centre-back, left-back position was a bit of a miss. I mean, the players they sold, they did well in selling them. Oliver Skip to Leicester, Emerson Royale to AC Milan. Finally, that one felt like it went on all summer. Joe Rodon back to Leeds. Lascelles to Real Betis. Ivan Perisic is leaving on a free. Ryan Sessegnon leaving on a free. Tanguy and Dombele finally leaving the club on a free. What a flop that's been. Eric Dyer leaving on a free. Jesuit Tanganga leaving on a free. Players who will no longer have a future. Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg, Brian Hill, Andrew Solomon, Velez on loan transfers as well. I think Højbjerg's going to be with an obligation to buy. So they've done well selling. And they've done well buying. But it did feel like they had areas which they missed. So I'm going to put Spurs in okay, which might be a bit harsh, but I think about it similar to all these other sides in Chelsea, Liverpool and Southampton. They had areas they needed to address, they didn't address them, and which could come back to haunt them. And so I've got to put Tottenham in okay. West Ham United up next, one of the big spenders of this summer transfer window, signing the likes of Max Coman, Somerville, Fulcro, Guimera, Wan-Bissaka, West Fodringham, Rodriguez, Kante, not that Kante, the other Kante, Todibo. I think they've had a really, really great summer in terms of recruitments. Obviously, they let go of David Moyes in the last season, brought in Julian Lopetegui, and they have heavily invested in him. And I think rightly so. I think if you think about the defence, was a little bit weak last year. I think signing Max Kilman, fantastic signing, along with Todibo on loan with the view to making that permanent, great signing as well. You've also got the forward areas of Somerville, Fulkrug. I think they're going to be fantastic players for them going forward. Finally, at number 9, you can eventually take up the reins on Mikel Antonio. We've seen Antonio start the season. I think eventually Fulkrug will be their number 9 once he gels into the side and the way the Lopetegui wants them to play. I think in midfield, they've heavily reinforced it. They've already had the players of Paquetá and Kudos being the flares, Jared Bowen, who I already mentioned, the club captain, as the flair players behind number 9. But they've, the likes of Souček and who else did they have? Alvarez behind them being the solidity in front of the back four. They've reinforced that as well with Guimera as well as Rodriguez as well. So I'm really excited to see West Ham going forward. I mean, I haven't even mentioned Wan-Bissaka, who, not a Man United player in my opinion, but for West Ham I think it'd be absolutely fantastic. We saw him against City do a really, really good job. We saw him come on in the game with Crystal Palace doing a really, really good job. So I'm incredibly excited about West Ham. And I think they've actually sold pretty well as well. Selling Flynn down to Southampton, Ben Rama to Lyon, Timo Keher to Monaco, Trott to Copenhagen. I let go a lot of players. I mean, James Ward-Prowse on a loan, but that will hopefully become a permanent. And, he's a Premier League quality player, so someone will eventually take him. I think Calvin Phillips, who they decided not to renew, Kurt Zouma, gone out on loan to Saudi Arabia, but that will be permanent maybe. Nefer Ged on loan as well to Real Sociedad. So the side is definitely taking shape into the side that Julian Lopetegui wants, and I'm incredibly excited to see how they do going forward. I do think that West Ham have a bit of a tough start, and it's going to take a little bit of time for all these signings to gel into the squad, into this way that Lopetegui is going to play, and for them to finally get some results and be higher up in the table where they want to be. But I think, as we've seen, what do you want to see from West Ham as a minimum is contesting with the top sides. I think they contested to a decent level against Manchester City in the game we saw before the international break. They did alright, but I think Man City's quality just showed. But I think in a few more weeks and months, we could really see West Ham do really, really well. And for me, I think they have had a great summer. If you think about what they needed to address and what they addressed, any areas that they're missing? I don't think so. So for me, they could potentially be in world-class window. I think Brighton definitely are. And I think West Ham maybe. I'm going to leave West Ham where they are for now. And in my final thoughts at the end of the video, I might come back and change them and maybe put them even higher. But for now, definitely at least a great summer. And finally, we come up to Wolverhampton Wanderers. And like I've said, for many of the clubs, a lot of Wolves' transfer business has been dominated by who they've been selling and trying to buy to replace those players. So the likes of Pedro Neto leaving to join Chelsea, Max Gilman leaving to join West Ham, Daniel Podence leaving to join Al Shabab, and I actually think that they've done some decent business in terms of the outgoings, because apparently Wolves were very close to that PSR and financial fair play line, and so to make just about £35 million worth of profit over the course of summer, I think it's really good business. I think Pedro Neto, for the fee that Chelsea were willing to pay for him, I think it's good business because he's one of your best players, he was one of your best players, but you need your best players fit, and he only played 20 matches last season in the Premier League, so to let him go, I don't think it's the end of the world. Max Gilman, 40 million to West Ham. Again, for me, not the end of the world because he was a very good player. Is he 40 million pounds worth of good at his age? Are you going to, you either have to give him a new contract or sell him. And I think selling him at this time was the right move to make. For 40 million pounds to West Ham, I reckon that's good business. And Daniel Podence, who's falling down the pecking order, didn't really want to be at the club. £5 million, that's fine, isn't it? So I'd be really happy with Wolves' outgoings if I were a Wolves fan, and I think that they definitely recouped a lot of money that they needed to reinvest in the squad, and I think they've reinvested it well. Andre from Fluminense, who actually put out a video for Fulham, and I actually think he would have been a great signing for Fulham, but I think for Wolves, I think he's a great signing as well. Rodrigo Gomes from Braga, who I think we've already seen has been a really good signing so far, and at a young age is only going to get better. Sam Johnson from Crystal Palace, experienced Premier League goalkeeper. Is he an upgrade on Jose Sa? I'm not sure. Maybe time will tell. But I definitely think that Sam Johnson is a couple of years younger. Maybe a better shot stopper. Maybe. But entirely time will tell on that one. Pedro Lima, great signing. Tommy Doyle from Man City, great signing. And I think the main one, Strand Larsen from Celta Vigo, already looks like a really, really, really good player. Obviously, only on the loan at the moment. But I think Wolves, I think you'd be silly if you weren't to make that a permanent deal. Already, he looks like a really promising talent. And I think it's one where, yes, they made a profit this year, £35 million. But I think it's one where they needed to make the profit because of the fact they're so close to the PSR deadline. And if you think about their goals and ambitions, stay in the Premier League. They've sold some players, and have they replaced them with the same quality players? I don't think so. But have they replaced them with good players and young players who could potentially become even better? I would say so. So in my opinion, it's not a great summer, because if you replaced Neto and Kilman and you brought in players who you thought, wow, these are equally as good and can maybe go up a level as well, I say maybe it's a great summer. But the fact is, people might put Wolves in need to be better or maybe okay, but I think they've been solid. Just because some of the names are unconventional, probably younger and not Premier League experienced players who, don't have the name and the caliber of some of the Premier League players. So you probably maybe think to yourself, okay, need to be better, okay. I think they're alright. I think the Wolves recruitment has been alright. And for me, I'm going to keep them in solid. I really like Aaron Neal. I really like Wolves. And I think going forward, they're going to be fine. Which then brings me to the end of the video and my final thoughts. Is there anyone that I'm going to change? Is there anyone that I'm going to bump up? Is there anyone that I'm going to bring down? So obviously I'm looking at the teams in great summer. Villa, Fulham, Ipswich United, Man United, Forest and West Ham United. And I'm thinking to myself, am I going to move any of them up? I'm not sure I can move Fulham up. I don't think they've had a world-class window. I think they've had a great summer, but not for them. I don't think I can move Forest up, because if they brought in the striker, maybe it was going to be Santiago Jimenez, then maybe world-class window. The two I'm really looking at here are West Ham and Ipswich. Because what I said with Ipswich was they signed a recognised striker who will guarantee them 15 goals, then it'll be a great summer. Liam Delap could do that. And what more do you expect from a newly promoted side, really? Yeah, so I'm going to move Ipswich Town up 1. West Ham. Could I move West Ham up? I could move West Ham up. I could. Maybe I'll come back to them. Solid: Arsenal, Bournemouth, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Man City, Wolves. I think they're all fine. It's these four in okay. Chelsea, Liverpool, Southampton and Tottenham. Could I move them down? Because they all needed to be better. But like I said, I think they'll be fine with the players that they've brought in and the players that they already have, which is why they're in okay. I need to be better. Everton, Leicester, Newcastle. Yeah, because I do think they might be at risk of not achieving their objectives. Do you know what? I am going to leave it at that. Maybe I'll move Fulham down 1. Yeah, maybe I'll move West Ham there, Fulham there. Maybe it'll be more like that. And maybe maybe something like that. Yeah, maybe something like that. They're probably not in order of what I think the actual transfer window has been. So, for example, I don't necessarily think that Liverpool have had a better window than Spurs, but I can't be bothered to go through every single one. Those are just the categories that I put them in. So, yeah, let's do that. Brighton and Ipswich Town, world-class window.